Welcome back to an introduction to arthropods. If you recall, last time when we left off, we were at the base of this arthropod family tree, down here at ring number 1 with all arthropods. And we're going to move our way up this tree today into the first one of these branches with part 2, Arachnomorpha. And Arachnomorpha is located here at ring number 2. It's the yellow and green branches of this tree. Arachnomorpha contains a number of different groups. We're going to talk about a few of these today. Xiphoceira, which are the horseshoe crabs, and Arachnida, which are arachnids. But it also contains a number of extinct groups, such as trilobites and various other trilobite-like taxa. You can see a trilobite in the bottom left here. And it may or may not, depending on who you believe, contain a group called Pycnogonida, which are sea spiders. And you can see one of these, a diagram of one of these in the bottom right here. They're very strange things that live at the bottom of the ocean and are pulled up in nets occasionally. We're not really going to talk about these latter two groupings. We're going to focus mostly on the ones I have highlighted here in red. So let's start with the first one. Xiphoceira, or the horseshoe crabs, located here at ring number 3, or the yellow section of this tree. Horseshoe crabs, despite their name, are not very closely related to what you would think of as a true crab. True crabs are actually crustaceans, and we'll get to them in a little bit. Horseshoe crabs are, as pictured here, characterized by 3 tagmata, or again, tagmata being functional groupings of segments. These tagmata are in the front, the prosoma, or the front body, or the before body, the opistosoma, which means opisto, meaning back or behind, and then soma, again, body, and the telson. Telson simply means tail. And there are, if I recall correctly, 3 species at present of horseshoe crabs. In the past, in the fossil record, there were originally a whole bunch of these guys. But these guys are, they'll occasionally wash up on shore, but they mostly live in the ocean and kind of crawl around and mash things up with they've got basically little knees that they use in the form of feeding devices. And they just kind of wander around feeding on debris and detritus and stuff. So we're going to move on to the next group, which is a currently more diverse group than the Xiphoceirans, which is Arachnida, or arachnids. And this is pictured at ring number 4 here, or the green section of this tree, and all these various groups up above in the upper left-hand corner. Arachnids are, for the most part, a group of terrestrial animals. Most of them live on land. Now, there are a few exceptions. There are some mites that have returned to the water and are now aquatic, or semi-aquatic. And there are a few spiders that actually live kind of at the air-water interface and kind of dive in bubbles under the water and stuff like that. But for the most part, you find arachnids in or on dry land. The things that unite arachnids as a group are first that all arachnids lack antennae. There are no sensory antennae on these guys. Secondly, all arachnids have 4 pairs of walking legs, or at some point in their evolutionary past, their ancestors had 4 pairs of walking legs. There are a few mites that have secondarily lost legs, but for the most part, you'll always see an arachnid having 4 pair of walking legs. In addition to these 4 pairs of walking legs, all arachnids also have 2 other sets of appendages on the front of their bodies. The first of these sets, that is farthest from the mouth, I guess, are the pedipalps. And the pedipalps are typically used for food handling, food capture. In some groups, they're used for mating. But there are these additional set of, for lack of a better term, legs that are not used for walking. And then this other set of appendages called the chelicera are surrounding the mouth, and these are almost exclusively used for food handling and food capture. And in a lot of groups, they're kind of pointy and spiked, and some of them have venom and stuff like that. Depends on the group. There are 11 currently living orders. I use that term lightly. Of arachnids, and these orders include some familiar forms such as Araneae, which are spiders, or Scorpiones, which are scorpions. But there are also some other ones, weird ones here and there, that you may or may not have run into. And then there's also mites and ticks, which are classically treated as the order Acari, but these days are usually split up into several different orders. They're the parasitic ones and a variety of others. Anyway, traditionally it was always Acari. And the first group of these arachnids that we're going to talk about are probably the ones that you're most familiar with, Araneae, or the spiders. The order Araneae, or spiders, is perhaps one of the most familiar groups of arachnids out there. Spiders are almost exclusively predators. There is one exception that actually lives in Central America and feeds on seeds, but other than that, other spiders hunt and kill other animals for food. Spiders are characterized by two distinctly separated tagmata. The front half of them, which is called the prosoma, sometimes referred to as a cephalothorax, and then the rear half of them, which is referred to as the opisthossoma, or sometimes abdomen. On the front half of them, on the prosoma, they have a pair of fang-bearing chelicera, and these chelicera are very special in that they have venom glands. All spiders have venom glands, and that is one of the characters that defines this group. The other character that really defines this group are, on the back part, the opisthossoma, a pair of silk-producing organs called spinnerets. The second group that we're going to talk about that may be a little less familiar to some people is the group Opiliones, or harvestmen. The order Opiliones, or harvestmen, sometimes referred to as daddy longlegs by some people, are a rather diverse group of arachnids. They eat a variety of different things, ranging from members of this group that are predators, to scavengers, to fungivores, things that eat fungus. They are characterized by a broadly fused prostoma and opisthossoma. So you don't see a very definite separation between these two halves of the body. It gives it kind of an oval body shape. And then the second thing that differentiates these guys from spiders is that their chelicera don't have venom glands. Opiliones pretty much all kind of look like this. There are some variations on the theme, but they generally will have this general body shape. The next group that we're going to talk about is also a fairly familiar one, Scorpiones, or scorpions. And scorpions all pretty much look like what's pictured on the screen here. They're characterized by three tagmata: the prosoma, or the front body, the mesosoma, and then the middle body, and then the metasoma, which is the after body. In reality, this is based off of a two-segmented body plan where the prosoma would still be the front of the body, and the mesosoma and metasoma combined would really kind of be that hind body. But we separate it out a little bit differently in order to talk about these regions. The other character that's fair, or one of the other characters that's fairly important for scorpions is that all scorpions have a venom-filled stinger, or telson, at the end of the metasoma. So you've probably seen a scorpion's tail before. They have a stinger at the end of it. The last character that is characteristic of this group, but is also characteristic of a few others, are a pair of pedipalps, or that pair of non-walking legs that is present in all arachnids, are modified into grasping claws. And these are these claws on a scorpion that you'd normally think of. In truth, that's their pedipalps. The next group of arachnids that you may or may not run into is a little less familiar. It's a group called pseudoscorpiones, or pseudoscorpions. So pseudoscorpions look a lot like scorpions do, but there are some fairly important differences. First of all pseudoscorpions tend to be fairly small creatures. They're 2 to 12 millimeters is about their size range, so they're pretty small. The other important difference between pseudoscorpions and scorpions is that they only have two tagmata, a prosoma and an opisthosoma. There isn't a tail like in scorpions. They do, like scorpions, have these claw-like pedipalps, but as I said, they lack a stinging tail. Most pseudoscorpions feed on small arthropods. A few of them are phoretic, or they kind of ride along on insects and disperse via that means. A few of them are actually commonly found in bird or rodent nests. The next important group that we're going to talk about, and I use the word group here because it's not really considered an order anymore, is the group Acari. And this is ticks and mites. The subclass Acari, aka ticks and mites, was once treated as an order. At this point, the higher level classification of this group is kind of a mess. As I mentioned earlier, all arachnids have, or at one point in their evolutionary past, their ancestors have had 8 pairs of ambulatory legs, 8 pairs of walking legs. Mites are the exception to this. And it's not because their ancestors didn't have 8 pairs of walking legs. They did, but some of these groups that are parasitic or less mobile have lost these legs through evolutionary time. And most mites actually only hatch with 6 legs, and then another pair will develop later. All mites have 2 broadly fused regions of the body, and we give these different names than, opisthossoma and prosoma. We refer to the front half of these, the mite body, as the gnathosoma, or the capitulum, and the back half of the body is often referred to as the idiosoma. Gnath meaning jaw, idio meaning separate or distinct, and then soma meaning body. Capitulum actually just means head, or head region. Sometimes, because these segments are broadly fused and not well defined, and in some groups it's weirdly modified, it's kind of viewed as just a single body tagma. I don't really know what to say about that. It depends on what reference you're in. But it's a rather complex and convoluted group that needs a lot of work. There's a lot of diversity within the mites and a lot of different lifestyles. And then there are a wide variety of other arachnid groups that you may or may not run into, depending on where you live. Telephonida, the vinegaroons or whip scorpions, you may encounter if you live in the desert. Same with Amblypygii, tailless whip scorpions. Same with Solifugae, which are the camel spiders or wind scorpions. And then there are weird things like Palpagrady or Schizomida, which are the short-tailed whip scorpions. It really just kind of depends on, where you are and how much digging around in the dirt you're willing to do. There are a few others that are rarely encountered or only found in caves, or, there's a few extinct groups, but, these are the ones that you're more likely to run into, I guess. And that brings us to the next segment of our tree, out of this arachnomorph branch, and up into the rest of this tree, which starts a group referred to as mandibulata. Mandibulata are things that have mandibles. And we'll continue with this section in the next presentation.